I knew.
Hi, Precious. How are you? Good morning.
I'm good. Good morning. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Yes.
All right. So, was it? How was the weekend?
Good, good, good. I had a bunch of, I had a couple of events. So I was a little bit busy, but overall it was nice. Week seven, huh? We are in
Yeah.
week seven. Yeah. um, let's jump in. So my first story here is OpenAI. So last week it was all about Google. This week probably going to be all OpenAI. So they released a new model called GPT-4.1. The interesting thing about this model is that this is supposed to be enhanced for coding capabilities. And I saw some of the benchmarks is doing pretty impressive. And it created, so this is a series. This is a new series now. It's becoming really, really hard to keep track of all these models, to be honest. But
Yeah.
a GPT 4.1 is a new series. They have like three different models. I think that's sort of becoming a pattern now. So they have this giant model, which is just GPT 4.1, which is kind of expensive, but it's the most capable one. Then they have GPT 4.1 Mini and Nano. So these models essentially outperform most of the GPT-4 or GPT 4.5 even in coding tasks. Now, one interesting thing about this is that they are not calling this reasoning model. Okay, this is just general model, not the O series. O series is all about reasoning. We use O3. I think our diff agent is default to O3 Mini. But this is something I definitely want to try, especially GPT 4.1 Mini, because it's companies like Windsurf are saying that they see drastic reduction in coding errors. So GPT 4.1 supposedly making less mistakes.
Okay.
So that's sort of interesting. So I'm definitely worth trying. I looked at the pricing a little bit just now before this call. GPT 4.1 Mini is obviously cheaper than O3 or O4 Mini. So it would be interesting. I feel like going forward for lots of these applications now, uh, we might have to. I mean, it would be smart to rely on different models for different type of task, right? So if you're doing sort of analyze this problem for me, maybe that in those cases O3 sort of about O series model sort of makes sense because you need reasoning. But if you're
Yeah.
doing purely code generation, then relying on GPT 4.1 Mini might be a very smart and cost effective way to sort of build AI agents. So kind of super excited about that.
Yeah. I think I see a couple of news about it on the internet. I think on social
Mm,
media, people talking
mm,
about. I think a
mm.
lot of people are saying it's cheaper. It's cheaper than the previous model.
Yeah, it's like a half the cost.
Oh.
But remember, I mean, again, I think we all have to get really smart about thinking about these things because for some task, O3 or O4 going to make a lot of sense because you probably need that thinking mode.
Okay.
Um, so we getting into the point where we have so a variety of selections now in models, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think this is sort of that's another a tool in the box sort of metaphor. You have to pick the right tool for the right job.
Oh. Okay, so the question I think I have now is what where are we going to get to? What is the peak of this whole model? Because for the past 4 weeks now, we're talking about new models every week. So
Now,
what is
this is
where
just going to be it's going to be we're going to be doing this for a while now, right? I mean, every incremental release or every major release going to have drastic improvements.
okay?
Now, I have another story that I want to talk about, which is a research paper that came out recently, which I think could be even revolutionary and a huge step change in terms of how these models generate code.
Okay.
Um, so that kind of increases even more capability for this model. We'll talk about this when I'll come to that story. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to be a wild ride for next couple of years. We're going to see drastic improvement in these models.
Because it looks like it's moving very fast, and we don't know. I've been trying to think. okay, so what's going to happen? We keep having these things every week. How is it going
Yeah.
to be like in 10 weeks? What's
Yeah. Yeah.
going to happen in by the end in December of this year? How is the model market going to be like?
It's
Going
hard. I mean, it's going to be. I mean, I have no. I'm a couple of things I'm pretty sure about this, that this model's going to become more capable, obviously.
okay.
And we'll also see that smaller models outperforming in some cases, which is kind of important, because then the smaller model is a good indication, because then lots of open source smaller model will have equal, even better capabilities. Then that means that we can deploy these models locally, or even in our own private cloud, and use them, right? We don't have to rely on this big providers. So that's
Oh,
a good exploration, right? We're going to see smaller models really, really performing well. Then going back to the another, we use the right tool for the right job, right? I mean, potentially you could think of, hey, I have this coding specific LLM model that I'm going to use for code generation.
okay.
When I have to interact with the browser, there is another smaller model specialized for that. I'm pretty sure we're going to evolve into that sort of architecture.
So we're going to have like
Another,
nice doing different.
yeah, another trend which bound to happen is the context size, right?
Yeah.
The context window is going to get bigger and bigger, which is the superpower for everything we build, because context is the king in this world, right? Um, so that in turn gonna imply that this agents or apps gonna get smarter and smarter.
All right. I think that's interesting. I can't wait to see what we're going to have towards the end of the year. I'm really looking
Yeah,
forward to the end of the year. I don't think I imagined how fast this is moving until we started this podcast. I
yeah,
started seeing
mm,
how fast this is moving. And now I get to see how people are building stuff on top of this. I've been having
mm,
crazy ideas. This is how once a new model is out, people are trying to build multiple stores, and I
yeah.
see making someone build a tool, and then in 1 week the person is making $10,000, $20,000, and I'm like, okay, is this the world we are living in right now? Is this how we're
Mm.
going to keep going, right?
So yeah, and another interesting trend is that as the models become more capable, and also pricing going down, is
Yeah,
just the best of the both world, right? That means the adoption rate of this is going to drastically also accelerate, because it's now cheaper to use this.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so during the week, an interesting thing happened. I really wish I can share the letter the mail that Figma sends to Lovable. So Lovable CEO came online to say that you know that that Figma sent them a mail telling them that they can't use the word dev mode on Lovable. So I'll try to explain what dev mode is, right? So on Figma, they came up at Figma, they came up with an idea. So Figma is a design tool for those of us that are developers and don't know what Figma is. So Figma is a design tool, right? Where they do UI UX design. Designers mostly use Figma. So Figma came up with they came up with something and they said, oh, if you can design, why can't you just generate the code for this thing that you just designed on Figma?
Mhm.
They came up with a process. I think it was free at some point because I saw some people talking about it on Reddit saying that it's not worth the money that they are paying, right? So they came up with this ideas, brilliant idea that okay, so once you're done designing, why don't you just click a button and generate the code for the design that you just did? That
Correct.
will generate CSS, you can generate iOS, you can generate even Android XML code for Android apps, right? Now it was it was a very brilliant idea, and the people started using it then when it was free. But I think the usage might have dropped now. That's now under behind the paywall. So the people guys at Lovable also they came up with an idea. They said, "Oh, so when you come to Lovable and Lovable is a code generating. I don't want to say code generating, but it's an AI agent platform where you go to build software using a prompt." So they came up with an idea and they said, "Oh, okay, so." mm, what if we empower our users by giving them access to a full code base, right? The full code base of their project directly on Lovable without them leaving Lovable. So they don't need to now integrate GitHub for them to be able to see their code base, more like building a VS code inside Lovable. Brilliant idea, very brilliant one, right? And then they built this thing, and then people started using it. My guess from social media is that people loved it from the feedback that we saw on social media, right? People love this too, but Figma now wrote to them and said, you can't call this tool that you just built dev mode because it belongs to us. We trademarked it. So you can't use that particular word. People have been sharing different opinion. I think some people have said that, oh, that some we should find another way to use it. That this is a commonly used and um, why will they come and say that they can't use the word demo? So I'd really love to know, like, what do you guys think about this? One, and the second thing is, what if do you think that they should use it in full? Because that's a solution that someone said, why don't you use developer mode instead of using dev mode, right? And I'm wondering, maybe we can also build something that took them and said, okay, this is dev mode, and then Figma is going to write us and say, you guys don't have to use dev mode. So, and my personal opinion is that I think this is a generally used word, and they might have gone a little bit too far trademarking it because with the way AI is going, we are going to see a lot of products, a lot of companies building something like this. So what do they call it? What do they
It's
call it?
fascinating that they can trademark dev mode. That's
Yeah,
crazy. That's
it's great.
wild. I
Yeah,
mean, if they have a trademark, I mean, I'm not a lawyer or expert. I mean, then they do have some sort of a set of rights that they can come back to you. Obviously, I know it's silly that Figma is doing it. Such a great company,
yeah,
but the fact remains, it's sort of interesting. I mean, I think Figma is dropping lots of value. I'm pretty sure they're working on this because Lovable V0 and their the Gemini story that we covered last week.
last week.
Gemini also have something, right? What is it
Yeah,
called now? Gemini.
Canva,
Their VS Code on the browser. We covered
Firebase.
this story. Huh?
I think they have Firebase, they have Canva.
Firebase Pro or something. Yeah. I know the majority of their use cases somebody dropping Figma design there and generate an app. So it's natural for Figma to say, why even do that? You can directly from Figma generate the code. I mean, that's totally makes sense to me. But yeah, it's fascinating. The list. I mean,
Really interesting.
seriously, dev mode. I mean, that's crazy.
So someone
Uh,
pointed out that on Discord they use
hmm,
dev mode, but they call it developer mode info. That's what Discord does.
interesting.
Maybe, but I think that's a long developer mode is so long. Dev mode is very sweet word, and it's so sad that they're denying us the opportunity to use that word. Right.
Um, yeah, it's interesting. Um, so, so another OpenAI story from my side. This time they have released a coding agent. So it's also sort of interesting how we seeing some of these companies are becoming a more product company than just a model provider, because models gonna get it's commodity now, right? I mean, everybody's doing it
Yeah.
at the fundamental level. I mean, there are so minor differences between them. It's really hard to pick. That's actually the biggest challenge right now, is to pick which model should I use, because all of them seems to be so capable now, right? But anyway,
Yeah.
their agent. This is the interesting bit, is that which I was very interested in, because it sounds very similar to our dev agent, because it runs inside the terminal. This coding agent that they released. All you have to do is just npm install into your product, in your repo, your project, and
Yeah.
then you get this codex command that you can use to fix lint errors, upgrade your product, summarize your code, maybe even add feature all through the terminal.
Wow.
The demo looks very good. I'll be honest with you, I haven't played with it yet. I wanted to. I'm not sure. I mean, lots of the examples are very heavy on front end, like TypeScript and JavaScript. I'm pretty sure this model, this agent is agnostic to your code, your programming language. Uh, but um, but yeah, I mean, they OpenAI has an coding agent now. The best part of this is that this is open source. So there is a oh, I don't have the GitHub URL. I'll look it up and share right just after this. So it's an open source. Anybody can download it. It will definitely, you have to configure your OpenAI key because that's what it uses.
Yeah.
But once you configure your OpenAI key, you're good to go, right? You invoke the from terminal and play with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's also interesting to see. I mean, with how you mentioned something about knowing which model to choose, and then how everybody is now building. Um, is it code generating platform? I keep calling the developer platform more like code generating platform.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking maybe there is a huge market there. That is where everybody's going there.
Oh
Coding.
yes.
So
Market. I mean, it reminds me like few years back, Sam Altman made a post like, um, and that when you hire, just in U.S. market, when you hire a plumber, you pay, I don't know, $100 for
okay.
for their work, or any other sort of blue collar job, right? But when you hire a software engineer, you pay $100,000. I mean, there's this just huge discrimination in terms of, right, how much
Yes.
engineers get paid versus. So interesting question about that is, why is that? Why engineers get paid so much versus other professions out there? And and as you can see, some of these models really drastically reducing the gap here. I mean, it's even harder to find plumbers in here than developers these days. I mean, the reality is. So there's going to be huge shift in the market, obviously, because this coding models. I mean, there is another aspect we haven't talked about. As these models get better and better, Vive coding gets better, right? Now
Yeah.
you don't have to be engineer, because you without being engineer, you will be able to produce high quality, relatively quote unquote high quality software, because these models are so capable now.
Yeah.
So that does creates a little bit of interesting. The economics are changing, so
Yeah,
that's
the things are changing. I've also been thinking out loud, maybe there's going to be a huge gap for people that will be able to use these tools and teach people how to use these tools, because
right.
if it's going to get cheaper, which means barrier to entry is going to get lesser, and
Yeah,
then demand for AI education is going to go higher.
yeah,
Right. So a
yeah,
lot of people are going to start checking, oh, how do I build this using this?
yeah,
How do I build this using this?
yeah. I don't say it's a table stakes, man. I mean, you should not. It doesn't matter who, any part of the organization. If you're hiring somebody, is it a middle manager, senior manager, developer, analyst? I mean, one question has to be is, tell me what's your AI workflow? How you use AI in your day-to-day job? Has to be. If somebody says, I don't, maybe I go to Chat GPT sometimes here and there, that's immediately a red flag. Has to be.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to hire somebody who doesn't want to move fast. Speed. No one will tell you, no, take as much as time you want. Right? Everybody wants as fast as possible. And one thing for sure, that these tools makes you faster. I get this question all the time, right, from engineers. Since we're talking about this, like, how you interview people, cheat in interview, they're probably using GPT to generate code.
Yeah.
And we talked about this, right? I said, yeah, they should be, because once you hire them, they're probably going to be using Copilot or some agent, Codex, or maybe Tubelian Dev agent to build stuff.
Yeah.
You needs to validate is that the validation changes, right? For us, for engineers, it changes is that, can I figure out the code that AI, this models are spitting out, is that a relatively good quality code or not? That's where we come in. That's why
Yes.
our skills are still relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing to see, really. It's an interesting thing to see.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's what worries me a little bit, that the schools and some of the education systems are so behind.
Yeah,
Yeah, the generation that's going to be out in the job market in few years, the job market's going to change so drastically. I mean, I feel like lots of us are not very prepared for this yet.
yeah,
Anyway,
I don't think
that's not. We are here to have fun. Who knows, man?
yeah,
But there is one interesting fact I did forget to mention, anything which is interesting. So obviously, you have to connect your OpenAI key with this codex. I want to give a fair chance to this story because I think it's
okay,
interesting in a couple of reasons. OpenAI got lots of black backslash for saying they're open, but none of their stuff is open, right?
okay.
So I'm very happy that they are finally embracing open source, right? This is an open source contribution from them, so that's kudos to them. They're also encouraging the adoption, so they have like 1 million API grants.
Oh,
I'm not sure if you go to the GitHub repo, I think they have details. So if you're building something interesting with the tools, you can make a case and they will give you API credits. I think that's interesting move.
yeah. I mean, I saw when Sam Altman announced the free ChatGPT for those students in US and Canada, and I think they've been opening up a little bit. I am
Mm,
suspecting the
mm.
most of the models that are coming from China, most of them are free, and then for I mean, most of the countries in Africa, they are going to tend towards the one that is more open source because that is where
Correct.
that's where most of
I
people.
thought I thought OpenAI also have a thing for students. I think
I
they
think
open up more models for students.
it's just for US and Canada.
Oh, I see. I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
it's just for US and Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're in the US and Canada and you're a student, you might want to check out OpenAI. They have something for you. You should definitely check it out.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing we want to talk about today is Postman Agent Builder, AI Agent Builder. So I found this tool like
Mhm.
3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, yeah, when I was planning for one of our podcasts, I had it like in my own personal notes. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to talk about this because this is very interesting." So, Melanjan, during the course of this podcast, he mentioned that sometimes we don't know what model to use. So you have this thing you want to build, you don't know which model should I use, which model is going to be best for this kind of thing that I'm trying to build, right? Now, that is where I think this particular tool is interesting. So
Mhm.
you go to Postman, you go to their Postman agent builder. You have access to all the models that exist listed on their platform. So you have Gemini 2.5, Gemini 2.0, OpenAI 4.0, 4.0 mini. You have all of them there, right? So you go to your setup, everything has been done for you. You just need to put in your API key. Once you put in your API key for any of the model that you want to test, then you have one side where you can put in your prompts. So when you run that prompt, you select the model you want to have in the output, and then you are going to see what it looks like on the output. So it's sort of an easy way for you to be able to test different models.
Oh,
Right.
that's cool.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I was thinking about the exact thing yesterday, but that's cool. That's good to know.
Yeah, so you just go there, you will see, okay, this particular prompt, what's the output like? Oh, ChatGPT is giving me output in 50 words. Can I have it in 90 words? Or do I want to have it? Want to have more words? Do I have one lesser words? Or is 4.0 mini better? Can I use 5.0? Let me see. So you can be able to test out different models. That way, you can easily test out what you're building before you start integrating, before you start doing the whole hard work. You already know the best model to choose for your development. And I think it is an amazing tool, right? I tested, yeah. So yeah, the link is on the chat. Also, if you check the chat, you're going to see the link to it. So check it out, guys. I really think this is solving a very huge problem. All you need is your
Yeah.
API. Yeah. So once you put it, I think they're also working on something. I saw it while I was researching on this. They're also working on something around solidifying API keys, more like having one API key across
Now,
all of
this is where I think things gets a little confusing because I think they're competing with something that's has lots of traction, which is MCP. I think
yeah.
discoverability of API. I mean, like I think lots of the providers are defaulting to MCP, which is open standard. So that might become a challenge for them. But one thing Postman does have is that they do have this tremendous data about all the APIs, right? They're sort of a API REST API testing
Yeah.
tool. It used to be back in days, right?
Yeah. That was what they did. Yeah.
And when somebody's told me, a couple of months back, somebody told me, hey, Postman is working on a sort of an agent builder. Like, what they're going to do?
Yeah.
But I do understand that they have wealth of knowledge about API endpoints and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's definitely useful. But I do like this comparison, which is very, very interesting. I think this will become even more bigger problem as people build AI agents. I mean, one of the thing that you're going to realize sooner or later, that you need to these agents make mistake. I mean,
Yeah.
models make mistake, right?
Yeah.
So we are sort of working with semi-deterministic things. So you always have to have error handler built in to your process, which means you have to verify the output that's coming from this model. Is it accurate or not?
Yeah.
So, I mean, all sort of not a test case, even in the runtime itself, within the app, you need to have test cases built in. So if when it fails, you can go back and revisit that. Maybe we should do a session on this.
Yeah.
People call this evals.
Yeah.
Um, so as we are building agents, I mean, that's one of the, I have a homegrown system that I've used for dev agent, but something like what Postman is providing going to be super useful, not in terms of which model you should default to, because like we just talked about, I mean, these mini models are becoming very specialized. This is specialized for coding. This is specialized for reasoning. So you always have to know which model to use for what task. So this definitely is very, very helpful. Super,
Yeah.
super useful.
Yeah. Super useful. Super useful. Going to solve a lot of problems.
Yeah. So I have Gus last story. I mean, we ran out of time in here, but this is kind of on the deeper side. There was a research paper came out of I'm gonna say MIT. Um, Now, the interesting thing about this research paper is that they figured out a new novel sort of approach to make this small, especially smaller models, to generate high quality code. Now, one way to think about this is that, I mean, fundamentally, we all know large language models kind of predict the next word, next token sort of thing, right? At the basic level. Which is great if you are saying summarize this or generate a draft email for me. All these are great because these are all words, English words. But when it comes to programming, programming languages have semantics, syntax, right? It's not like English, right? It has the semicolon needs to be there. If you're generating Python code, it needs to have two spaces or two tabs. So lots of smaller models sort of struggles with that. So these guys came up with a nice little algorithm. What they call it is a where is that? All they call it is a superior control text generation using a sequential Monte Carlo framework. So what they have done is they have found a very smart way to sort of break that problem down. So remember, I'm talking about smaller models, right? Smaller models means the idea is that we don't have lots of GPUs, lots of resources to process this. How can we make smaller models perform better? Is sort of they broke down the generation step into sort of a smaller task. So imagine when you give, hey, go generate this hello world program for me. What it does is that it breaks that problem down into smaller programs, almost like mixing experts. I know I'm all over the place in here, but I'm trying to simplify because it's a little bit complex idea here. So the code generation is broken down in smaller parallel tasks. After each stage of the task, there is a higher set of rules that comes in and verifies. So imagine when you have to generate a program, you have like hundreds of minions. Minions is a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
So you give every minion a task, go generate this hello world program. after they generated a couple of lines, you have a checkpoint, let's say. And in a checkpoint, say, okay, is this, and you verify with the checkpoint, like an eval, is this minion making progress in the right direction? If not, you penalize them. So you start with 100, maybe in the first checkpoint, 50 of them were right and 50 of them are off, generating something like garbage. So you drop those 50s out, saying, sorry, you cannot continue anymore. So
Wow.
they figured out sort of a step-by-step guide, which kind of almost like a guardrail that sort of manages the smaller models to generate high quality code.
Wow. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, so I thought that was super interesting because then we gonna if this really works the way they're saying, then we're gonna get into the point where the correction rate, the error rate of this model is gonna drastically reduce.
Yeah. So I think I saw something like that. I don't know if it's the same research or a different one, but I saw, I think it's from Harvard. Maybe it's different, maybe it's the same. But then they're talking about a step by just the same way you explained, like a step by step approach,
Mm,
uh, process on how to prompt the model. I think that's where this is a little bit different because that one they didn't talk about mathematical stuff, just talked about step by step best prompting practices that you can use to get high quality code out of an LLM model, right? So I
yeah.
think what they explained random. I tried putting it on the story today. I said, maybe we'll leave it for next time because I didn't have time to go through the details and get everything. But then maybe next week I'm going to bring that so that we can also look at it because it's going to be very interesting how I think that is the era we're going into. So we need people to educate. We need people to educate, to start going into education, looking at these tools, using them. So what is the best way to use it? I use it this way. This is what I think. This is the best practice. Kind of like the early days of JavaScript when we have JavaScript, we had React, we had Next.js coming out. People started building things, trying to stretching the tools, seeing what they can do, where they fail, where they succeed, and all those things. So I think that we are sort of like in that space right now with
Yeah.
AI. So we are going to need a
So
lot of people to come in.
so the fundamentally what they're doing is exactly going back to the evals is exactly how I designed the dev agent too, right? When it was generating every step, literally after every step in the sequence, I have a verifier coming in and checking is this the right direction, because if it's not, there's no point going further down the lane because it's going to be garbage, right?
Yeah,
Because programming languages have much more control semantics and syntax. So
yeah,
there's a question out there from Jordan. So I shared my note book LLM with the PDF, so you guys can play with it. It will explain you the paper. You guys don't have to read the entire paper. You can just ask. That's how I read it. So what they have done, Jordan, is that they essentially broken down the whole thing into set of rules. The way they described is that there are simple rules, there are hard rules. When they give this, going back to the minion metaphor, that hey, go generate to the 100 minions, all these minions are given a very simple rule, which is interesting because remember we're talking about smaller models, so we don't want to constrain them with high processing. So simple rules sort of makes sense so that they can operate on that. But every checkpoint they have harder rules comes in that validates that is this if we let this minion go, will this minion able to produce a high quality code or not? If not, they stop that there. So as they're going in, they start with this sort of a top of the funnel, right? And every checkpoint they reduce the number of minions. The guess is that by the end of the flow, whichever minion passes through reasonably going to produce a high quality code.
oh, wow. I think this is an interesting way to also think about it.
I thought that's very smart.
Very smart, very
Yeah,
smart. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
we need more academians on in this industry so they can also.
I mean, it'll be fine. I mean, it's at the paper. Maybe it would be interesting to invite that person. Who knows? So we
Yeah,
can,
yeah,
I can send an email.
yeah. Could definitely.
That's all from my side.
Yeah, I think that's all from me too. This is 35 minutes. So we have about 6 or 7 people live with us. So hi
What?
guys. Hi. So If you're live with us, I just want to say hi. This is a shout out to you. I can see Diane. Diane, thank you. You said you are going to check out the postman thing. Thank you so much, Diane, for joining us. Jordan D, thank you so much for your question. That was a very interesting question. Thank you very much for joining us. And I noticed that these people have been here since like the fifth minutes, and they've stayed all to the end. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jordan D. Thank you very much, Diane. Thank you for coming. So that will be the end of today's episode, right? So I mean, it keeps getting interesting. It keeps getting interesting. So thank you everyone
Yeah.
for joining. And then next week, Monday, same time, we're going to be here. We're going to discuss more models, and then we're going to discuss interesting topics. So join us. Make sure you join us next week. So
All
with
right.
that,
Cool.
bye. Enjoy the
Bye.
rest. Enjoy your Easter. Enjoy the rest of your day. Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye.